Hi guys, Legendary Basil Games here. So I'm here to talk about Kakashi Hatake and his mental health diagnosis and what it could possibly be. I think that he has PTSD, and here would be some of the symptoms. So, what would have witnessed would be a war-based type PTSD, and most likely for symptoms, he would have difficulty concentrating, difficulty remembering some aspects of the trauma of the time just before it had occurred, difficulty making decisions, confusion, intrusive thoughts, and what happened, a sense of disorientation, anxiety, fear of terror, anger, or irritability, shock, grief, a feeling of being numb or detached, guilt, a feeling of hopelessness, alienation, a feeling of vulnerability, a feeling of abandonment, increased startle response, exhaustion, insomnia, headaches, nausea, and other digestive problems, rapid heartbeat, a spacey feeling, loss of interest and or pleasure from usual activities, which those would be physical effects. Relation effects would be hostility, withdrawal, lack of interest in relationships in general, poor work or school performance, blame, a desire to nest, that is to stay home and avoid contact with the outside world, overprotectiveness of family members involved with the trauma. He would also have depression, which you guys probably know what that is. Basically, very bad. When you experience it, it is where you feel apathy, the inability to concentrate, a sense of hopelessness, insomnia or oversleeping, a lack of interest in other people or activities, profound sadness, suicidal thoughts or actions, and feelings of worthlessness. And he would probably also experience alcohol, drug abuse issues as well. But we never explicitly see this in the anime, though. I don't believe, because I don't remember some of that stuff. So I would have to rewatch some parts of the anime to get an accurate description of that. Anxiety disorders would be agoraphobia, where you're afraid of to go more than a short distance from your home or can't face leaving your home at all. And the doctor will probably decide what agoraphobia as a secondary diagnosis, see more about that hyperarousal, and possibly panic attacks with generalized anxiety, which we know what that is. That feeling where you're all jittery and stuff, and you're anxious when somebody comes in your house, or you meet somebody that you don't necessarily know because they're a new person in general. He would probably also have OCD, which is symptoms such as rituals and constant checking. For instance, going back to the kitchen 6 or 7 times, make sure that the stove is turned off. That's a part of the trauma as well. Also, obsession with germs, which plays into the diagnosis of germophobia, which is where you're afraid of germs as well. Panic disorder, where you have frequently experienced disabling panic attacks when you feel like you're dying as well. Which that's another thing too. And or you feel like you're dying, losing your mind. Your doctor may give you this diagnosis. Social phobia, an extreme fear of being around other people, can warrant this diagnosis, which I have that, so I would know. I'm terrified of people when I look at them. And because people have been known to be like rude to me before, so I have been diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm also reading this from a standard DSM-5 statistic manual, which is the diagnostic manual for how you would get diagnosed with PTSD. So, and another thing that he would probably experience, which also would be another part of the trauma, which we will get into that in this short little section, which is the disassociation part, which he would experience brief parts of not being able to remember who he is or where he is occasionally, but I don't see this happening very often, as he is a very smart character in general. But when things get stressful, that could happen, because it happened to me before. So I am going to bring this up in this video and say that he probably does experience this as well, which this condition involves a big loss of big chunks of memory that are too extensive to be the result of normal forgetfulness. Usually these memories are traumatic in nature. Some people who experience dissociative amnesia attempt to prevent others from knowing about it from the memory loss. Sometimes they experience a large number of small losses or of memory loss instead of one big loss. They experience like a small loss of memory, short-term memory loss. That's a thing that people with PTSD also possess, because I've been known to have it, because I have PTSD. But anyway, that's another thing that he could possess as well. Another thing that he probably does experience as well is probably schizoid personality disorder, which 1 in 3 people of the population. Once again, genetics appear to play an important role and account for how much of half of the risk of developing this disorder. People with personality disorder are quintessential loners. They exhibit 4 or more of the following symptoms: lack of close relationships to family, friends, choose not to interact with other people. That would be another thing that they often would present as well. But yeah, that would be one thing that they also have as well. Video's not working today that great. Which they choose to do activities that don't involve other people, have little to no interest in mating rituals, essential behaviors that keep the human race going. So, well, to some people, not to me, but they seem unable to enjoy any activity, appear distant, detached, or aloof, have no meaning of that. Basically, they don't attach meaning to anything, really. Basically, they have no meaningful connection to others, seem indifferent to praise or criticism. And the list just goes on and on. Watching on sunset, listening to the ocean, hiking in the mountains would be another activity that they would enjoy. Receiving or giving a hug, which some people with schizoid disorder don't enjoy hugs, which I have schizoid, apparently. That's part of my diagnosis, but I do enjoy hugs. So, but I like to keep like a distance from people, but when I want a hug, I really want a hug. So it makes me feel not so lonely sometimes. So that's part of the thing that schizoid people would also experience, that feeling like they're always alone because they're loners. So, because they don't really interact with people too much. But they would also need, like any other human being, attention, love, and care and stuff to show that the world still does care about them. Like, in their eyes, my eyes, that would definitely be a thing, because it leaves them with a sense of not being needed or wanted. So, in order to get what they need out of their lives, they sometimes will seek reassurance from people, which that is another thing that PTSD people also have, because I possess that as well, which basically he would essentially possess all of these things. He would also possibly have paranoia, which is where you would feel mistreated, deceived, or exploited by others, hold grudges for a really long time, misinterpret benign events or remarks by others, assume that most people are out to get them, which sometimes I feel that, not always, but sometimes, don't trust others enough to confide in them, which that is another defining feature of PTSD, is that people also experience a very strong lack of trust in others just because of the way that they were hurt. Basically because they put their faith and trust in somebody else, and that person failed them, and they don't believe that anyone else is worthy of their trust because that event took place, although that may not necessarily be the case. But people with PTSD sometimes do feel that way. So, and sometimes they have this thing, which I only learned this a little while ago as to what this actually is they possess this thing called the repetition compulsion, which basically, because somebody did something bad to them, they're probably going to do it to somebody else and unleash the same form of pain that they were put through. Possibly. Not always, but possibly in some of the ways that they were hurt. Not always necessarily in the exact same way, but due to them being hurt and not really understanding that behavior is not acceptable, then basically they would do it just to prove their point. Which some people honestly have this issue, which it sometimes is warranted, sometimes it's not. So, but that is my point, and I'm going to also bring up another thing as far as what paranoid personality disorder also entails. Don't basically doubt the loyalty of friends, partners, families, members, and lovers. Feel jealous or frantically search for signs of betrayal, which that's another form of, or not form, but part of PTSD, is that because that person that was hurt with PTSD, they also experience that fear of betrayal and feeling like somebody's going to turn on them and do something really bad to them, although sometimes it's unwarranted. Sometimes, unfortunately, it does happen. Or sometimes it doesn't. And they just think it's going to happen, but it never does. So, but The other thing that Kakashi might possess, which this is a form of learning thing, a learning disability, which autism, that's what he would also possess, which is what makes him so smart. But it would not necessarily be a normal form of autism. Basically, what he would possess is the form of autism that's called autism savant disorder. I think that's what they call it. But basically, it's a form of autism that, in a way, makes you so smart that you basically forget how to like comb your hair and stuff sometimes. But that's not always the case. But sometimes people with autism savant disorder, sometimes they are very, very smart people and very, very, very intellectual people, which some geniuses would have it. Sometimes people like Albert Einstein, he's a shining example of this. He was also noted to possibly possess schizophrenia, which I discussed that in another video, that some of the characters in Naruto might actually possess schizophrenia, which that's going to be another theory all on its own. I'm going to make a video about that. But anyway, the point is that Kakashi probably is an autistic savant, which means that he is superior in intellect. So basically, he probably learned this stuff along the way, and naturally, because he is the son of the White Fang of the Leaf, his father was also very smart. He also probably inherited that from his father as well. He also has specific tools that he inherited as well. So basically, he is one smart dude. That's my theory. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.